It began on an ordinary weekday morning, warm sunlight spilling across the quiet school campus, the sound of children's laughter echoing between the classrooms. The campus was a small but busy place, an apartment block for the staff, a wide ground where students played, a kindergarten at the front, and the main school building just behind it. That day, the coordinator, a woman known for her calmness, was inside the AV room checking the projector when she noticed someone walking through the front gate. At first, nothing seemed off, but then she froze. The figure was moving too slowly, too straight. They were wrapped head to toe in white, a thick, heavy fabric covering their entire head, even the face. It wasn't a veil or a scarf. It was more like a shroud, yet somehow the person walked with perfect precision, as though they could see exactly where they were going. A chill rippled through her chest. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was something sharper, instinctive, a sense that something was wrong on a level beyond understanding. Her pulse hammered. For reasons she couldn't name, she felt she shouldn't be seen by that person. She wanted to lock the door, hide under the table, vanish. But she couldn't. She had responsibilities. She rushed outside, found the cleaner, and told her to lock the kindergarten gate immediately. The cleaner hesitated but obeyed, slamming the rusty latch shut just as the figure drew closer. From the school ground, a few teachers noticed the commotion. The PE staff ran over, calling out, but the stranger didn't react, just turned slightly, as if following an invisible line, and walked away. That evening, the story spread through the entire campus. A person in white, face covered, walking straight into the school grounds. No one knew who it was, what they wanted, or how they had found their way in. By nightfall, everyone was on edge. The next night, the campus was silent again. Lights out, the hum of the ceiling fan, the smell of rain in the air, until the dog started barking. It was a young dog, barely 5 months old, but the sound that tore from its throat was deep and violent, like something primal, the kind of bark that doesn't come from irritation or play, but from recognition. Fear. The woman woke instantly, heart pounding. She tried to hush him, but he kept barking toward the window, toward the dark courtyard outside. Her son stood at the doorway, blinking in the dim light, half asleep but alert enough to feel it too. The stillness that settles in a room when something outside is wrong. She drew the curtain aside. Nothing, just the faint glow of the streetlight, the outlines of trees swaying in the wind. Still, the dog growled low, fur raised, and then, faintly, they heard it. A sound from below, a soft thud, then another, the kind that makes your skin tighten because it's too slow, too deliberate to be random. She stepped out into the corridor and found others awake too. Neighbors murmuring, lights flickering on. Someone said there was a visitor again. The same person had been seen earlier that day. The one in white. The drivers had chased her from the kindergarten, down the road, toward the pond at the edge of the property. There she had collapsed under a tree and sat for hours, unmoving. They said she stayed there for 2 days. No one knew why. When they'd tried to remove the cloth from her head, they found she was a woman. Her skin dark, her face blank and still. She said nothing. That was 2 days ago. Now she was back. She had gone to one of the teachers' homes on the edge of the property, banging on the window first. Softly at first, then harder, louder, until the noise turned into something that didn't sound like knocking anymore, but an attempt to break through. When the teacher's husband looked outside, he saw her, standing there, her hands gripping the iron bars of the window, her body swaying back and forth, whispering something that sounded almost like a song. Then suddenly, she dropped her weight and hung from the railing, her head tilting upward. She said something no one could make out. Then she let go. By the time the others reached the house, she was gone. The boy's dog wouldn't stop barking. The mother took the leash, her hands trembling, and went downstairs to join the group gathering outside. The boy, still searching for his glasses, lagged behind, until he found them oddly tucked under his blanket. When he reached the gate, he saw shadows in the dim streetlights, teachers, a few guards, and his mother, all huddled together with flashlights. They moved cautiously toward the road that led to the pond, voices low and nervous. He stayed behind, listening. A scream shattered the quiet. Then another, short, cut off mid-breath. He froze, then silence. Moments later, the group returned, panting, pale, and shaken. His mother was clutching the dog tightly, eyes wide. "She's gone," one of the teachers said. "She ran." They told him what had happened. They had found her near the tree by the pond again, the same one. When they confronted her, she spoke, her voice strangely calm and articulate. She said she was from another town, far away. She said she'd once lived near a place like this, years ago. But when she looked directly at his mother, her words changed into something bitter, venomous. She cursed her, screamed her name, and then tried to run. The mother struck her leg with a stick to stop her. A sharp crack followed by a wail. Before the others chased her off into the dark, the dog pulling hard on his leash. For a moment, it was over. The tension broke. People smiled nervously, laughed even. The boy hugged his dog, grateful, thinking it was done. But the next morning, when the sun came up over the courtyard, the gate was open again. The latch was broken, snapped clean, and on the ground, right outside their door, lay a small piece of white fabric, torn, mud-stained, as if someone had stood there quietly, sometime during the night, and left it behind. I don't believe in the supernatural. I used to, or maybe I just wanted to. My mother raised us in a home full of esoteric ideas, rituals, crystals, candles. And when I was a teenager, I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. Between my upbringing, my diagnosis, and an overactive imagination, I learned early that my mind can show me things that aren't really there. Over the years, I grounded myself in skepticism, in evidence, logic, observation. It's what helped me live a stable life. It's why I'm still here. But there's one night I can't explain. Not because it was supernatural, but because it wasn't. Because everything about it felt too real. I was 8 years old. My sister was 10. It was winter break, just before Christmas. Outside, the snow fell in thick, lazy flakes. My sister's room was warm from the radiator, and we were sitting cross-legged on the carpet playing Pokémon on her handheld console. We had mugs of cocoa, the kind with those tiny marshmallows that always melt too fast, and the house was quiet except for the faint hum of the heater. It was the kind of night that feels too peaceful to be disturbed. And then the footsteps started. Slow, heavy, right above us. We froze. It wasn't the wind. These were distinct, deliberate steps. They moved across the roof, one by one, with a sharp crack in between, like someone wearing boots on ice. I made a joke about Santa, trying to sound brave, but my voice cracked halfway through it. My sister didn't laugh. We both stared at the ceiling, waiting for another sound. Then the steps started again, slower this time, moving toward the back of the house. Our father came upstairs a minute later. He had that look, the one adults get when they're pretending not to be afraid. "You heard that?" he asked. We nodded. I told him it sounded like hooves, half smiling when I said it. His expression changed immediately, subtle, but enough for me to notice. He went to the window, closed the blinds, and turned to us. "Don't look outside," he said quietly. "Don't open any doors or windows. Stay downstairs with me. Do you understand?" There was something in his tone I had never heard before. Not anger, not panic, just urgency. We obeyed. We camped out in the living room that night, all three of us. My father sat in his armchair with the TV muted, staring toward the hallway. He kept a kitchen knife next to him on the side table. I remember thinking it was weird, but I didn't say anything. At some point, I fell asleep. When I woke up, everything was quiet. My sister was still asleep, and my father's head was slumped forward. The fire had burned low. The clock said 2:47 a.m. I didn't like sleeping downstairs. I never did. So I grabbed my blanket and went upstairs. The air grew colder with every step. My room was dark, my window uncovered. My father had forgotten to close the blinds there. From where I stood in the doorway, I could see the snow piled up on the section of roof just outside. And that's when I saw them. Indentations, not footprints. Too wide for that. More like half circles pressed into the snow, slightly oblong, spaced far apart. They started near the gutter and moved closer and closer to my window. I froze. Something about the pattern made my stomach twist. They weren't chaotic. They were deliberate. I stood there, unable to move, until I realized I was holding my breath. The room felt heavy. The air had gone still. And for a second, I can't explain why, I wanted to open the window. Not out of curiosity, not even defiance, just an urge, like a quiet suggestion in the back of my mind. But I didn't. I was a rule follower. My dad had said not to. So I backed out of the room, closed the door gently, and went into my sister's room instead. It was warmer there. The radiator hummed softly. I spread my blanket on the floor beside it and tried to settle down, but I couldn't shake that strange feeling. Like something was waiting, I lay there for what felt like hours before another thought crept in. Quiet, persistent. Go downstairs. Open the door. It wasn't a voice. It was a pull, like being drawn toward something without understanding why. I sat up. The house was silent. My sister was asleep, breathing evenly. The only sound was the faint crackle of the radiator. Just a peek, I told myself. Just one. I went to her window, lifted one slat of the blinds, and looked outside. There were tracks in the snow, a long line of them leading away from the house. They stopped at the back fence, right where the bushes grew thick. And in those bushes, something crouched. It wasn't moving, but even crouched, its head was visible above the fence line. It was facing me. I couldn't see details, just a shape. Tall, draped in something heavy like a coat or cloak. A hood covered its head. The porch light caught part of its face, and for a second, I thought I saw pale skin. Too pale, too long. It didn't move, didn't breathe. It just watched me, and the longer I stared, the stronger that pull became. Open the window, step outside. I let go of the blinds. They snapped shut. I stumbled backward, my chest tight, my heart slamming against my ribs. I sat down beside the radiator, pulled the blanket over my head, and waited for morning. I didn't sleep. When I finally heard my father moving downstairs, the light outside was gray. Early morning. I peeked out the window again. The snow in the backyard was different now, messy, disturbed. There were tracks again, but smaller ones too, overlapping the larger ones. Barefoot prints. They led from the back door to the bushes. I didn't tell my father right away. When I did, he didn't say a word. He just went outside with a shovel and started clearing the yard, every inch of it. When he came back inside, he locked the door and told us not to mention it again. He never did explain why. That was nearly 30 years ago. I still don't believe in the supernatural. I've spent most of my adult life learning how the mind distorts, how fear shapes memory. But even now, when I hear the house creak on cold nights, or the wind slip through a crack in the window frame, I think about that night. About my father's face when I said hooves, about the prints on the roof, the shape behind the bushes, the silent pull toward the window. And every time, I remember the way he said it. Calm, quiet, almost pleading. Don't look outside. I never did again.